Ravens Rundown by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here. Thanks for joining us. Coming up on today's show, it is mailbag time from our NFL Daily Show, where we got plenty of questions about your Baltimore Ravens, in particular about potentially bringing in Jarvis Landry, the future of Rashod Bateman, and more. We'll get to all that coming up in just a matter of moments. Before we do, Ravens fans, want to make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We are in hot pursuit of 13,000 subscribers, less than 80 away from our next milestone. So, come on in, invite all your friends, make sure all the cookout is subscribed to Ravens Rundown as we talk about your team each and every day with daily news and rumors, live shows, mailbags, watch parties, and more. Doesn't cost you a thing. Subscribe now for free, and we'll get started with today's show. Steelers fan equals pain. Wah, wah, wah. Chimes in and asks, could the Ravens sign Jarvis Landry? Hashtag NFL. So this is a very interesting question from Steelers fan equals pain. So the Ravens are an interesting situation where this is a team that has been dramatically improved at the wide receiver position this year. But we've seen OBJ get banged up. Tylan Wallace has been a little banged up. Rashad Bateman missed some games at one point. I think that they're another injury away from potentially signing Jarvis Landry. But I don't expect them to sign him in the immediate. If something were to happen, that would be the first phone call that Eric DeCosta and John Harbaugh would make. If they lose another wide receiver for an extended period of time, if OBJ or Tylan, one of those guys, is out for a bit, then yeah, you call up Jarvis Landry and you would gladly take him to be your number 5 receiver or whatever it may be. But at least in the immediate, in the circumstance they're in right now, the injuries at the wide receiver position aren't bad enough yet. But I do have his number on speed dial ready to go just in case if that were to happen. Let's ask you guys, our pinned comment today, what team will sign Jarvis Landry, or will he sign anywhere at all? Weigh in the comment section. Tell us what you think if Jarvis Landry is going to play somewhere and where it is on today's show. The Big Rago checks in. Heard Justin Jefferson still wants to play with Kirk Cousins. Will the Vikings bring Cousins back next year? Big Rago, glad you asked. So, yes, there were rumblings that Justin Jefferson wants to play with Kirk Cousins again next year. Cousins, of course, out for the rest of this year and going to take a while to recover. He's going to be a free agent at the end of this upcoming season. But I think it's going to be interesting because just because you want to play with somebody doesn't mean that you're going to always get what you want. Think about the Raiders, for example. Devontae Adams went to Las Vegas to play with Derek Carr, right? That was one of the things that appealed to him. And then, what do you know, after a year, that didn't work. They moved on from Derek Carr, brought in Jimmy G, and it was a disaster and all that. Okay? So, just because Justin Jefferson wants to play with Kirk Cousins doesn't mean that he's going to get said opportunity to. What I could see happening, hear me out on this, this would be the way that I would see Cousins coming back to Minnesota. If I'm the Vikings, hear me out here for a second. What about, because you need to get your quarterback for the future. You need to find that young quarterback that's going to be your plan for the long term, because Cousins isn't the long-term solution there. Hear me out on this. What if you sign Cousins to a short-term deal, let him be the starter, go draft your next young quarterback, let him sit behind Kirk Cousins? Because here's the thing. Think about this. We have spent how many years in the NFL evaluating quarterbacks and how to get quarterbacks ready for football? And whether people want to admit it or not, the best way to prepare a quarterback is to let him sit and learn how the NFL works, take like a redshirt year of some sorts, and then let him take off from there. The best quarterback in the league right now, Patrick Mahomes, did that, and look what it did for his career. It worked out well for Aaron Rodgers. Isn't working out so well for Jordan Love right now. But that, to me, is the smart move of some sorts. If I'm Minnesota, that's what I would do. I would bring Cousins back on a short deal, go get my quarterback, let them sit behind Cousins until they're ready to take over. What do you guys think? Will Kirk Cousins play for the Vikings next season? Y for yes, N for no. Predict it for me in that comment section of what's going to go down. Laura writes in, hashtag NFL, who is available at cornerback for the Niners to trade? Well, trade deadline's come and gone, so the answer is no one. But names to watch of some sorts that did not get traded, or their names will come up again later. Jalen Johnson, Pat Surtain, those are guys potentially that are going to be high on the market, getting phone calls coming up this offseason to make moves for at the corner position. But trade deadline's come and gone. Niners aren't going to be able to trade for a corner. That time's coming past. Anthony writes in, with jobs opening for head coaching positions, are there any head coaches in college or coordinators and colleges that you can see becoming good head coaches in the NFL? So there's a couple names to watch for as far as college coaches making that potential transition. One of those is the obvious one, that's Jim Harbaugh in Michigan right now. And we've already seen Jim Harbaugh was a very good coach when he was in the NFL with the San Francisco 49ers. Got the raw in the deal of him and the York gang not being on the same page, and ultimately he got, the brunt of that situation. So that was unfortunate for Jim Harbaugh there. Jim Harbaugh, I think there's a pretty good chance he's going to be an NFL head coach again this upcoming season with everything going down at Michigan. With as good of a track record he has as a head coach, Jim Harbaugh would be the obvious. I think there's going to be some teams that do fall in love with Lincoln Riley, although I would not advise that. Lincoln Riley's a fraud. Seeps' burner writes, is Rashod Bateman done in Baltimore after this year? Well, Seeps, good to see you. Seeps' burner, let me put it this way to you as far as Rashod Bateman goes. Rashod Bateman has not lived up to expectations of a first-round pick. It was supposed to be his team, right? Last year, he was given the keys to be the number one receiver, and he couldn't stay healthy, and a lot of bad luck. But even when he's been out there, he kind of just fades and is forgotten about in the offense. And so if you're the Baltimore Ravens, I think that you look at it kind of twofold. How much could we really get if we trade off Rashod Bateman, which right now would not be a ton? And then two, are we just better off just hanging on to him and seeing if it works? I think that's your situation because even though he is underperformed, you might as well just keep him and try to see if you can get something going. Now, if he doesn't play well the rest of the year, if he can't figure it out, you might cut bait and count your losses and say it didn't work. But to me, that's the way I look at it, is that there's just not a huge market for him as far as that goes. I think they'd be better off just trying to see if they can potentially make it work. And think about next year, too. Are the Ravens going to have OBJ back? Probably not. Are they going to have Nelson Aguilar back? Maybe. So Rashod Bateman still might end up having a chance to be your number 2 or 3 receiver next year. So I would lean towards hanging on to Rashod Bateman despite the disappointments. Where will Rashod Bateman play next year? What do you guys think? Is it back in Baltimore or is it somebody else? Who would be a good fit for Rashod Bateman? Weigh in the comment section. Tell us what you think. Today's show is sponsored by Odds Are. Odds Are is not a betting app, but its AI technology recommends the bets you should be making. Because let's face it, luck is not strategy. We don't take your bet, but we make you better at betting. So here's what I need you to do. Go ahead and download Odds Are, create an account, and we are giving our viewers today a 30-day free trial when they sign up for Odds Are. Go to oddsr.com/NFL Daily. The link is in the comments in the description of today's video so you can check it out and you can see for yourself. It's real easy. Here's how Odds Are works, folks. They have every NFL game. They also have other sports like the NBA and others where they have the odds listed. And you get to see very easily the bets they recommend you should make and the ones you should stay away from. Green means go. Red means bad. And so when you're placing your bets this weekend, before you do so, go to Odds Are and figure out if those are the ones you should make. Check it out now. Link is in the comments and description of today's video. Terms and conditions do apply. Download Odds Are for your 30-day free trial. oddsare.com/NFL Daily. Sperry Psychos, check it in. What team would be the best fit for Jim Harbaugh to coach next season? I got to tell you, the team that's got everybody's attention is the Chicago Bears. He played there at one point in time. He's a Midwest guy through and through. And that's a team that's going to be picking very high. That's got a ton of cap space. It kind of just all adds up, right? I think that's the team that catches my eye potentially. I think the Raiders could have some interest there as well. But I would expect multiple teams will have potential interest in Jim Harbaugh. But the Bears specifically, I think, would be the potential best fit for him. And Kevin Warren, who's now the president of the Chicago Bears, former Big Ten commissioner, is very familiar with the work of Jim Harbaugh. So they have a relationship dating back to his days in the Big Ten. So that's the team I'm watching for potentially. We know Eberflus is going to be fired in a matter of no time. I would expect the Bears to be the potential best fit for Jim Harbaugh. What team should Jim Harbaugh coach next season? Weigh in that comment section. Tell us what you think. Give us a team that comes to mind that you think would be a good fit for the Michigan head coach. Or is it back at Michigan with the Wolverines when it's all said and done? Let us know what you think. Got time for a couple more questions here. Bulls Nation writes in. Is it possible that the Raiders interview Coach Prime as a candidate? That's an interesting question, Bulls Nation. I think nothing is off the table for the Las Vegas Raiders. And Coach Prime is going to be interesting because we've heard rumblings that there's some teams that like the idea of the attractiveness he has to players through NIL and the transfer portal and all that, of getting guys to come to Colorado, if that would translate to free agents and wanting them to come to the NFL. I think, though, the problem with Coach Prime is that the way his attitude is, I think it's perfect for the college game. I don't think that his mindset is going to fly well with grown men in the National Football League. So maybe the Raiders give him a shot, but I think that Coach Prime's future is, without a doubt, as a college football coach. I don't know if his whole shtick is what the NFL is looking for and dealing with the GM and owner, all that. I mean, Coach Prime's a lot. I love Coach Prime. I'm rooting for him at Colorado, but I don't know if that necessarily translates to the NFL. I would think no. Last question from Logan. Do you think Chase Young to the Niners is a rental or will he be a long-term deal? Based on the numbers, Chase Young looks like a rental. Chase Young is not in a position of the money that he's going to demand on the market this upcoming offseason for the Niners to be able to afford him. The Niners have less than $2 million in cap space next year. They've already paid Bosa, and they've paid a number of guys. How are they going to pay Chase Young? Seems unlikely, but it does look like a rental, at least for now. They would have to really unload some things if they're going to make some changes. So we'll see. Logan, thanks for the question. Thanks for joining us here on NFL Daily.